You are on ABC Radio Queensland and on the ABC Listen app. And more you're hearing the term AI, as in artificial intelligence. People finding new ways to improve productivity and creativity using AI. It is a new frontier, and of course people have their concerns, but there might just be a new AI, artificial intimacy, and it could be cause for even more worry. Psychology expert Dr. Jo Lukens is with me now. Good morning.
Good morning, Susan.
So what is this idea of artificial or digital intimacy?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, isn't it? I'm sure when people knew we were talking about this today, they may be wondering what we were going to be talking about. But it's essentially looking at the different ways we now connect with people. And so certainly in terms of our mobile phones, which you've been talking about today, there's lots of different ways to connect. So through our social media relationships, through our online communities, virtual friendships, and of course online dating, there's lots of different ways for people to, I guess, connect. But what we're looking at now is, what does this mean for people in terms of the depth of that connection and therefore the digital intimacy?
It is interesting because you can, that digital space, the artificial world that we can connect through can bridge big gaps, but it can also create a distance in terms of things like loneliness too, can't it?
Yeah, it's interesting that in a world that has never been more connected, we have the highest rates of loneliness and people feeling quite socially isolated. So absolutely to your point, Susan, that your long-lost relative way over on the other side of the world, you can connect with them and have much more daily interaction than you might have typically. But what we seem to find is that depth and authenticity of the interaction that just can't be beaten by having a face-to-face contact with somebody.
What sort of psychological factors contribute to this phenomenon of having many online friends but feeling that lack of closeness or intimacy?
Yeah, there's a number of ways that it presents. So one of the things obviously that happens in our online communication is we lose out a lot of the really important communication tools that we rely on to connect with others. So the non-verbal cues, the physical presence, it's harder to be emotionally intelligent when we're interacting online with others. And the other thing that of course happens is there's this curated or idealised version of ourselves that we feel like our social media platforms are perhaps a place to compete or present a version of ourselves that isn't really true. So it's everyone's highlight reels and we get this false sense about what other people's lives might be like.
Are you saying people aren't authentic on social media, Dr.
Apparently, that staged photo that we might do. I was actually at the beach last week, taking a bit of the school holidays time. I know you did too, and watching someone take shots of themselves on the beach, and no judgment on them because I'm sure I've done it myself, but yes.
And then they review it before they upload it.
Absolutely, with a filter.
You are on ABC Radio Queensland. I'm talking with psychology expert Dr. Jo Lukens about AI in terms of artificial intimacy. How does the concept of artificial intimacy manifest in those online interactions, and what are the implications for people's well-being?
Yeah, so we do know, as you were saying before, that loneliness factor is a key thing, people feeling isolated. And we know that most people come off social media feeling worse than when they got on it. We do see some of those effects, and a lot of that social comparison factors are parts of it. But artificial intimacy, it simulates emotional closeness, but there's just huge gaps there in terms of what those interactions offer. And they're often very short, fleeting communications with others. We scroll through and we don't spend time like we might if we were sitting down with a friend having a conversation or talking to a family member on the phone even. So we know all those apps we were talking about before, social media, the messaging apps, all those virtual environments are there and available. They're great tools for us, but we need to be careful, particularly if they're our main form of communication with others.
If we come off them feeling worse, but and we know that people aren't being authentic, why do we still keep going on there, Dr. Jo Lukens?
Well, that is a great question, isn't it? And we've seen the effects of clickbait, and what we actually know for a lot of people is there is a physiological reaction to being online. So you put that post up and you get the likes and you get the comments, and it's that little buzzy feeling that people might have noticed when they do that. That stuff's addictive. So that's what keeps drawing us back into it. And for any of us that have ever maybe looked at something online and then suddenly it's 20 minutes later and you're looking at cat videos or whatever it might be. Like, it's designed to keep you on. It's not designed for you to go on for 2 minutes and then come off. So that's why, for all of us, having some regulation strategies in place to help us enjoy social media, get the good things out of it, but not have it cripple us in terms of some of its psychological effects is really important.
So what are some of the warning signs that we should look for if that people might be having that they might be having that negative impact of social media?
Yeah, so I think as with all of these things that we talk about, Susan, a little bit of self-monitoring. So what I mean by that is just checking in with yourself and seeing how you feel when you get off. Some people might have heard me say that before and go, oh, I don't feel worse when I come off. Great. So if that's the case for you, then maybe you've got the digital diet that you need, if you like. What we want to be doing is just checking in with how you're feeling, checking in with how you feel about your connections, if someone unfriends you or something like that. If those kind of factors really can impact our social life and what we're getting from these online interactions. So also checking in with yourself. If you are going through quite a lot in your real life world, if we want to call it that, be mindful then as to whether the social media aspect is helping you or it's not helping you. So it might be a point of connection for you, or it might be making things worse, and maybe what you actually need to do is go and get a cup of tea and go outside and enjoy some nature or something else. So
Yes.
it's a lot of that, it's that self-monitoring, but I think the biggest thing with social media is to be aware of your habits when you're on social media, so then you can be in control of and decide how you want to interact with it as a forum.
Now, speaking of phones, Dr. Jo Lukens, what was your very first mobile phone?
I've been thinking about this morning. So my first one was a little Nokia, like I think most people had, and
Yeah.
then I moved to a really big chunky blue thing, and I can't remember what it was, but it was about the size of a paperback. So it's certainly a long stretch from the slimline phone that I'm on right now. I think I've been through a few of them over the years, like many people have. I wish I'd kept them. They probably belong in a museum.
Yes, I'm sure that there will be a museum one day. We've even heard of people with the big bag phones from back in the day.